If 6, negative 2 is a point on the graph and the axis of symmetry is negative 1, which point below must be on the parabola? Okay, so first what you have to do is draw that. An axis of symmetry means it's going to cut the parabola down the middle. So this is the axis of symmetry cutting the parabola that I would have down the middle. And 6, negative 2 is on the graph. So my parabola could look like this and have a minimum, or it could go the other way and have a maximum. At this point, having a minimum or a maximum doesn't matter. The test wants to see if you know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that if this point is 7 steps away, then the point on the other side should be 7 away from the axis of symmetry. 7. And even though it's 7 away and there's a 7 here, neither of those are the answer because you started at negative 1. So this is negative 8, negative 2. Okay? Next question. 2 points on the graph of a quadratic function are shown on the grid below. So what is the equation of the axis of symmetry? Well, we know that on a vertex, or when we have vertex, the first number x is always the axis of symmetry, and the second number is either the minimum or the maximum value. So the axis of symmetry, we're talking about this part of the vertex, which means I can eliminate b and d because they say y. So now I'll look at my 2 points and find the middle. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So this is the middle, and that is at x equals negative 3. It says that the student is drawing a graph of an arc, and as shown below, the arch, I'm sorry, I said arc, the arch has the shape of a parabola that begins at the origin and has a vertex. Okay, it told us the vertex. So 4.6 is the axis of symmetry. 12.2 is going to be, for this picture, a maximum. And you have to be careful. If you don't realize that or remember what the vertex gives you, you cannot do this problem. So other than the origin, so other than here, at which point would the graph intersect the x-axis? Now you can try to guess and keep it even, but I don't think that's what they wanted you to do, knowing that they gave you the axis of symmetry. So 4.6 is about here. So this is halfway, which means the distance from this point and this axis of symmetry is 4.6. So I need to go 4.6 more, and it will take me to the second point, just like we did not on this question, but this question here. Same problem, just asked differently. So we would say I am at the axis of symmetry, which is 4.6. Now let me go 4.6 more. In this problem, it doubles because we started from 0. But be careful, because we don't know if they're going to start from 1 or negative 1 on the test. Okay? We don't even know if they're going to ask the question exactly this way. But what we do know is it has to be the same distance from both sides of the axis of symmetry. So 4.6 plus 4.6 gives us 9.2. And because it would be here on the x-axis, that is an x-intercept, meaning all of the y's have to be 0. 9.2 is answer B. So I threw something extra in there. If I'm an x-intercept, my y equals 0. So it will be whatever the x is and then comma 0. What is the minimum? And let's make that clear. I want the minimum value, because the minimum point is the same thing as the vertex. And then I want to know the zeros. So I'm going to go to the calculator and let's see, add a graph, type in x squared minus 4 press enter, and I'm going to look for the minimum. And menu, 6, analyze, and the minimum is at 2. So go to the left, then go to the right, and there is my minimum point. The vertex is 0, -4. Well, since the vertex is 0, -4, the minimum value is just the y. So the minimum value is y equals -4. The axis of symmetry would be x equals 0, meaning this is really a y-intercept. You have a y-intercept when the x is 0. So I have my minimum value, y equals -4. Now we have to find the zeros. That's where it crosses the x-axis. You can do it here. Still go to 6 and go down to 0, number 1. And if I click in the middle, it's a little trick. You can drag to the right and get 2, drag to the left and get -2. So the zeros would be 2 and -2. You can also write that as a solution set with the squiggly brackets, squiggly lines. Okay, what is the vertex of the graph of the quadratic function? Okay, so to do this one, you can again type it in and get your vertex. So Control Doc, add a new page, go to graph, x squared plus 6x plus 10. And I'm going to do menu 6, and it has a minimum. So click to the left, drag it to the right, click, it is -3, 1. Also, if you notice, just to throw out there for free, this parabola doesn't touch the x-axis. So if it asks you how many solutions, you would say no real solutions because it doesn't touch the x-axis. The next question is actually number 3, but there are no numbers. Okay, which statement about the quadratic function below is true, or quadratic functions below is true? So, does it have a minimum point? Are there 2 graphs that have a minimum point? Well, I have a minimum when my graph points up, which means that A is positive. And when I look, A is negative, so that's a maximum. A is negative, so that is a maximum. A is positive, that is a minimum. So, are there 2 of these functions that have a minimum? No, only one of them has a minimum. So this would be the statement that's false. Now, if you can't do what I just did by hand, can you plug these 3 in the calculator and look at it? Most definitely. When you put these in the calculator, you will see that the axes of symmetry for all of them are the same. So this is true, which is why you can't pick that one. You will also see that the graph of the 2 functions, there are 2 of them that do not cross the x-axis. So they have no real solutions, and that would be true. Last but not least, you'll see that all of them have different y-intercepts. Okay. This question here is exactly the same. My A is negative, so that means it's going to point down. That means it has a maximum. Same here. And then this one has a minimum. And so we ask ourselves, of these two, of the 2 graphs, the 2 functions, do 2 of the 3 functions, 2 of them have a minimum point? No, that is false. So that's our answer. And I think I duplicated this question just for practice. Again, if you graph these 3 functions in the calculator, you will see that B, C, and D are true. Okay, now we're talking about the quadratic formula. If 2x squared minus 9x minus 5, if this is true, which below would represent the solution? Now remember, quadratic formula, when you use it, it gives you the roots, the zeros, the x-intercepts, the solutions. And that's what you have here. So A is 2, B is -9, C is -5, and we do our x equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. Good job. So negative, and then we put in our b, which is -9, so yes, there are 2 of them. b squared would be negative 9 squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. From there we realize that a negative times a negative is a positive, so 9. 2 times 2 is 4, and then we do the inside. You can do that by hand, and if you cannot, just type it in a calculator. I hate to resort to the calculator, but at this point I want to make sure that you get the right answer, and I do not want you missing the question over a simple arithmetic or typing it in or trying to do it by hand. I just totally screwed it up, sorry. But you know what I mean. And I'm not starting this video over. So that's 121. Alright, so you can laugh. Anyway. And we put our radical over 121. So, I know that D and A cannot be the answer, which means the answer would be B. Now be careful on this next one, because A is negative, and that changes the whole problem. You'll see when we do it. A is negative 1, B is negative 4. Okay, what about C? Can I say that C is negative 1? The answer is no. This must equal 0. So you take him over to the other side. You make him positive. So C is positive 1. Now we use the formula and we plug everything in. Negative times negative 4. Plus or minus the square root of b squared, negative 4 squared, minus 4 times a, negative 1 times c, positive 1, all over 2 times, negative 1. So this is positive 4. This down here is negative 2. This here is going to be 16 plus 4. 16 plus 4. So that gives me 4 plus or minus the square root of 20 over negative 2, which means we can eliminate these two. But the question is, why is the answer not J? Well, this negative down here moves up. We never write a negative in the bottom. So when it moves up, it looks like F. And that's why most people miss that question. Okay, what do the three equations below have in common? Okay, I would type all three of these in the calculator and look to see if they have the same vertex, if they have the same axis of symmetry, minimum, and I should have been more clear as to if that's a minimum value or minimum point, roots and zeros, and y-intercepts. So let's go look and see what happens, because I know this problem we did not do in class. X squared minus 3x plus 2. Tab, so I can graph the next one. 2x squared minus 6x plus 4. Tab, 3x squared minus 9x plus 6. Okay, and I'm going to hit menu and go down to analyze, but I'm going to go down to 7 because that's going to take me to axis of symmetry. And I'm going to ask the calculator to show me the axis of symmetry by putting the hand pointing on the graph. And I notice that it's giving me 3 over 2 for all of them. So they all have the same axis of symmetry. So yes, they have the same axis of symmetry. And I notice that answer choice C does not say 2, so I can eliminate it. Okay, now I'm going to look for zeros. Menu, 6, 0. And I am going to put this in the middle, my dotted line in the middle. Oh, it's asking me to choose a graph because I have so many of them. So I'm going to choose the purple one. And then click in the middle, drag to the left, I get 1. Drag to the right, I get 2. They all have the same zeros if you notice. So 4 has to be there too. So do I see 4 here? Yes, and 2. I do not see 4. I see 4. So now my answers are to B and D. Okay, let's look and see. Do they have the same vertex? Well, I notice that, let me zoom in a little bit. I noticed that my three parabolas, they have different bottom points. 1, 2, 3. They have different stopping points at the bottom. So my minimum point, which is the vertex, as well as my minimum value, meaning the horizontal lines of what stops on all three, are different. So I can say that they do not have the same vertex, nor do they have the same minimum, and I bet you that minimum value, the y equals. So looks like 2 is right, 4 is right, but 1 is wrong, and so is 3. So I don't even have to check 4, or excuse me, check 5. I know that 1 is incorrect and 3 is incorrect, and 1 and 3 are included on D, so the answer has to be B. Okay, on this question it says which table shows the same relationship as what's given in the question. All you have to do is type this in the calculator and hit Control T to match up the table with the problem. And if I'm not mistaken, you should get H. So why don't you try it and see what you get and let me know. So that was Control T on your Inspire calculators. Okay, moving on. Oh, you can also check it by hand. Let me show you that. These are the X values. So if I plug in the X spot, it should give me the Y. So Y equals X is 2. 2 negative 2 squared plus 3 times 2. And so that is, looks like the negative is not included, so the negative is on the outside. So it's going to be negative 4 plus 6, which gives me 2. And that is what it says. So let's see, this one says 1, that one says 1, 2. So let me plug in 1 and see if I get 2. So Y equals negative 1 squared plus 3 times 2. And that is negative 1 plus 6, which gives me 5. And it says it's supposed to give me 2. Uh-oh. I plugged in a 2 right there, didn't I? That should have been a 1. Sorry. So X was equal to 1. So I put a 1 in the X spot and another 1 in the X spot. There we go. And then that is 3. So negative 1 plus 3 gives me my 2. Yay! And I get my 2, which is not 1, so H really is correct. I have to be honest, on this question, I would prefer you to not do that by hand. Let me tell you why. That negative right there, I don't know if you know to not put him in parentheses. We've talked about it, but seeing it here and not having practiced it in a long time, I would rather you put this in the graphing screen and match the table. Okay? Moving on to the next question. Which graph can be obtained by translating the graph of h of x equals 0.33 x squared plus 2 down 7 units? Okay, so first I have to know what he looks like. And when you put him in the calculator, you will see that he is at 2. So if I'm at 2 and I'm trying to go down 7, this one goes up, so that's wrong. This one here, if I start at 2, it's going up, so that's wrong. Okay, now this one goes down. And then if I started here, this one goes down. So now we just have to figure out which one goes down 7. And if I'm at 2 and I end at negative 5, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Answer is C. Now I'm asked to find the value of f of 6. That means that x equals 6. So I can put 6 in the x spot. And the answer I get is the answer to the question. Or you can look on the table for when x is 6. Whatever is in the y spot is your answer. So I'm going to add a graphing screen. Going to type in 2 divided by 3 x squared plus 8x. I'm going to graph it. And I'm going to go to the table. And I'm going to look for when x, which is this first column, is 6. And it is, when it's 6, my y is 72. So the answer is 72. You can also go to the calculator and type in 2 divided by 3 times 6 and square it, plus 8 times 6, and you get the same 72. On the next one, x is 16, so I put 16 in the x spot. Or I go to the table and look at 16 to get our answer, or to get your answer. Now, I added a question in class, and if I'm not mistaken, it was 1/3 x squared minus 8. And I asked you to find x comma negative 8. So instead of looking in the x column, you looked in the y column at negative 8. And x was 0. So the answer for this was 0. I also told you that instead of writing the point this way, they could have wrote f of x equals negative 8. What does that mean? Same thing. Y equals negative 8, which is why we looked in the y column. So this point, that statement, and y equals negative 8, they are all the same thing. If d equals 0.052r squared plus 1.05r plus 0.0627, and d represents the minimum stopping distance that the car is going to travel in feet, going a speed of r miles. So we stop. D is measured in feet, and it's the stopping distance. So guess what that is? That's your D. R is miles, and it says find the number of miles. That means I don't know R, and I know that D is 300. Well, there is D sitting in the Y spot. So guess what this question just gave us? It gave us the Y. So we look and put this in a calculator, but you cannot use D and R. You have to actually change that to X and Y, which I don't think is hard. And 300 would go there. So then after you put 300 in that spot on the table, you look in the table and look for 300 in that spot, rather. And then whatever the X is, that's the answer to this question. Believe it or not. It's amazing. And this question is just like him. It's just in word problem form. And I don't want you to skip these kind of problems because you can actually do them. So you would put this equation using y and x in the calculator. 300 is in the y spot, so look over for what the x says, and that would be your answer. The graph of the quadratic function h passes through the points -4, 32, 3, 4, 5, 14, and 7, 32. Which of the following shows the same relationship as h? Well, this is y right there, and that's x. And so those are backwards, because it said that x needed to be -4, not x needs to be 32. So this is wrong. I'm looking at 3, 4, and I come over here. Here's 3. There's 4. So 3, 4 is on the graph. 5, 14. There's 5. And then there is 7. And it is not 14. It's 7. So, not the answer. But if I look at this one, it goes -4 to 32. 3 to 4, 5 to 14, and then 7 to 32. That is my answer. You can check this by putting it in the calculator and going to Control-T, and you will see that this does not match the points provided in the question. Okay, in the quadratic equation, x squared minus x plus c equals 0. C represents an unknown constant. If x equals -3. Whenever you see that a letter equals a number, you always plug that number in. So this -3 goes in there. -3 squared minus -3. And I have to put the minus because it says minus, but x is also negative, so I'm going to end up with 2 of them, 2 negatives. And plus c equals 0. So all we have to do is figure out what does that have to be so that it equals 0. And if it says if x equals -3 is one of the solutions to the to this equation, what is the value of c? See what I mean? All you have to do is plug in what you think c is and try to get 0. So parentheses -3 squared minus parentheses -3 plus, so let's try 1. Do we get 0? No. Okay, well, I don't know if going up or down is going to make it higher or lower, so let's just see. Uh-oh, I went up and I got a bigger number. So that means I need to go down. So arrow up, highlight it, press enter, and bring it down. Let's try -2. Nope. Keep going. Let's try -10. Ooh, almost. Let's try -12. There it is. So the answer to this question is -12. Okay. I want to get this trinomial, and I know that I can get a trinomial if I multiply my binomials. So we can multiply these binomials. Very simple. I noticed that this one has a plus and a minus, but I have all plus signs here. So I can eliminate anything with a negative for this question. Which leaves me with one answer, B, which I don't think that's going to happen on the STAR test, but it happened in this practice problem. Or previously tested STAR question. So I'm going to use the box and multiply. That's 3x squared plus AB. And then these two give me 3AB. And then these two give me B squared. So there's my 3AB. There's my B squared. Now I need him. Well, this is 3 ABs, and then that's 1 AB. That's a total of 4 ABs. So it is B. Again, we are trying to factor, but since they give us the answer choices, all we are really required to do is multiply. And they both have plus signs, so anything with a negative I can get rid of. And if I'm just looking, I'm trying to get 2a squared by the first two terms, and I don't think I'm going to get 2a squared using x and x. So I'm going to try D. X plus y, 2x plus y. 2x squared plus 2xy plus y squared plus xy. And this is 1xy plus 2xy's gives me 3xy's. Y squared, 2x squared. We got it. Okay, so, I have all kinds of negatives here, so I can't eliminate anything. I just start with whatever I think is right. I know I'm trying to get a 6, and 3 times 3 is 9, so it's not A or C. So it's B or D. Let's try B. Negative 3x plus 4, 2x minus 1. That gives me negative 6x squared. This gives me positive 3x. That gives me positive 8x, and then negative 4. Well, I got him and him, but that gives me positive 11, and I need negative 11. Well, that says 3x and 4 and 2 and 1. They just switched the signs if you notice. So D is the answer. And of course you can check it to make sure. It wants the area, so you have to do the length times the width, which means you are using the box again, and you're multiplying. So 2x plus 3, 5x minus 1, 10x squared minus 2x, plus 15x minus 3. So that is 10x squared, and then you always combine this diagonal, which gives us 13x, and then minus 3. So this is the area. Last question in quadratics. The side lengths of the figure below are given in centimeters. If the perimeter of this figure is 78, what is the value of x? Okay, perimeter means to add all the sides. So 2x minus 3 plus 2x minus 3 plus 12 plus 2x plus x squared has to equal 78. Now, if this is true, and one of these is the answer, all I have to do is plug in each answer in the x spot and see which one gives me 78, honestly. And you're done. So that's why you have to realize, when you're taking a multiple choice test, it says, what is the value of x? That means these are the values of x. And x is right there. So just plug in x and see which one will give you 78. Now, we are talking about perimeter and the length of each side. And how do I know that? Well, it says right here, the side lengths of the figure below are given in centimeters. Well, the side length cannot be negative. So you have to get rid of F and G. which means the answer is either H or J. So let's type in 2 times 6 minus 3 plus 2 times 6 minus 3 plus 12 plus 2 times 3. Let me check my work. 2 times 6 minus 3, got that one. 2 times 6 minus 3, got that one. Plus 12, got that one. Plus 2 times 3, got that one. And that should say 6. See why I went back and checked it? Plus 6 squared. And I'm trying to get 78. Ah, got it! Yeah! Okay, so the answer is H. And that concludes this section. So the next video you'll see will be over functions, domain, and range, and interpreting graphs.